Here with us now to unveil the new cover of Time magazine.
Fantastic segue.
Managing editor Richard Stengel. And the cover this week is?
The cover is a result of a 6-month investigation by our Pulitzer Prize-winning correspondent Bart Gellman of the extreme military armed militia movements growing around the country since the inauguration of President Obama. It's a very serious story. It's a very serious investigation. It's very explosive. The timing of it is in some ways awkward. But the FBI, the ATF, all of the federal agencies are very concerned about these organizations and lone wolves who might actually cause great damage.
So let me ask you about this. We were talking about it off the air.
Yeah.
That Republicans get upset with these type of stories because every time Republicans seem to be making political gains, these are the type of stories that come out. And I will say, it may be the reality, but it does feed into a certain worldview that the far left has of the conservative movement. But you said this actually, you started the investigation before
Right. When we first hired Bart,
known
this was the story he wanted to do. It was something, you know, there were 4 alleged assassination attempts against Obama before he was even inaugurated. You know, Bart was hearing that this was a big concern of people. You know,
but that was
just
a big concern
news is never
George,
convenient, Joe.
That was a big concern under George W. Bush. What is different now?
What's different now is because you have a African-American president with a foreign-sounding name, and it has basically taken so many of these groups that had gone into decline in the 1990s, and they've had a resurgence now. They've been newly motivated, and again, there's a whole range. There are plenty of militia groups that are you know, patriotic guys who go out on the weekend and train, all the way to groups that again regard the government not as the problem, but as the enemy. And they see federal agents as the people that they will take up arms against. I would argue, frankly, Joe, that it has nothing to do with the Republican Party or the Tea Party movement or anything like that. This is about something else that's beyond the pale. It's even hard to describe what the kind of political affiliation
so how much is race underneath this? You mentioned African-American president. How much is race in underpinning a driver behind these militias?
It's interesting. It's hard to know. We have Bart has a fantastic piece, and there are groups and leaders in the article who say, you know what, I hate being compared to these white supremacist organizations. I reject the KKK. I reject them. But some of them are. I mean, and there are 2 very, very explosive details. The shooter who at the Holocaust Museum, remember, who shot that guard, he had David Axelrod's address and name and a note saying that Axelrod was poisoning America. And then James Cummings, this fellow who was arrested after President Obama was inaugurated, turns out, in fact, had come the closest of anybody to developing a dirty bomb. He had isotopes, he had uranium, and this has not come out before. Yeah. These are both very, very scary and explosive details. And I would argue, Joe, that there is no good time to publish something like this.
Were you concerned that you were publishing it a month and a half before a midterm election?
Yes, I certainly thought about it. It was ready. The story was breaking. I mean, it's not the week before. It was impossible to hold. It's in some ways it is a particularly sensitive time to do it. But again, information like this and news like this is sufficiently important that I think it overrides that.
And Donnie, on the race front, I've always made parallels to '94 for a damn good reason, because there's so many parallels to '94. In '93, '94, when I was campaigning, there were militia groups out there, and you'd hear them, and they'd stand up and say things at town hall meetings, and it would scare the hell out of you, and you'd slowly, like, walk out of the room with your back, you know, walking backwards. But you know what? Guess what happened? There were stories about militia groups in 1994. We complained about it. And in April of 1995, we had Oklahoma City.
Yeah.
So for people to say that this isn't a concern, but it wasn't about race.
I'm not saying that
I heard more hateful things said about Bill Clinton in '93 and '94 than I've heard about Barack Obama.
I got to tell you, guys, because we sit here in New York City.
I was there. I was there. I was campaigning day in and day out. And I'm telling you, I heard more hateful things said about Bill Clinton and Hillary Clinton in '93 and '94 than I've heard about Barack. I'm not saying that it's not out there.
Yeah.
I'm just saying this is an anti-government extremism that
but you
may
can understand why
be affixed
I think anti-government is part of it. I have no research to back this up. No. Common sense tells you, and it's interesting that Mr. Stengel, even in setting up the piece, very quickly pointed out African-American president, that I just wonder where white supremacists and anti-government people, where that axis starts to cross it. Sad thought, sobering thought. Yeah.
Right. There's an overlap, but it's not 100% overlap. Yeah. But again, you know what I would argue, and I would say to you, Joe, that left and right, Republican and Democrats, we believe that there are solutions to problems through the electoral process, through the democratic process. These are people who are outside of that belief system, who do not think that solutions come through the electoral process or any traditional means. That's the problem and the difference.
They're frightening, and I just wonder if this is what we're going to be facing every time a progressive president is elected. It happened with Clinton in '92. It's happened with Obama in 08, and it is frightening, really frightening. You also have, and we don't have time to get through all of them. We've shown some of them today.
Oh, the
some
polls.
Fascinating polls in this week's Time magazine. It really.
I heard you talking about it earlier. The Florida race. That was a surprising result. And Alaska.
A couple different ones.
Florida, Alaska, California, where Democrats are making gains. Other states where they're falling behind. Illinois, where that's deadlocked.
Apparently, spending $200 million, as Meg Whitman will do, will not be enough. Yeah, which is amazing.
There have been a lot of people that have spent a lot of money in campaigns in California and have come up short. More times than not.
It's actually a platform to run against. I said this last time I was on. I found Jerry Brown. Every ad I run, just do a ticker on the left side of how much Meg Whitman is spending.
Yeah.
And I mean, that's a strategy right there.
It's incredible. All right, Rick, thanks very much.
Thank you, Rick.